right. Oh, fuck. I'm all tangled up in this.
We are struggling with these new mics, you guys.
They're nice, but they're a pain in the ass.
They're too fancy for us.
No, they're so heavy, too. Like, I didn't sign up for weightlifting.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway.
We're gonna be ripped.
Miranda, like, I have to tell you something. This is brand new to you as well. Like, I know. So Jake, who was our guest in, I think, our first mini scare, right?
Yeah.
It was our first mini scare. He's my roommate, and his sister lives across the street with his nephew, who's about 3 years old. And his sister's name is Sarah, and his nephew's name is Jack. And I got a text from Jake earlier that said, "From my sister, Jack, I don't like that downstairs. Sarah, what don't you like? Jack, the ghost."
Yeah, nope. Time to move out.
And then he also said there was a spooky in his room, a girl, and that he doesn't like them.
Yeah, that's not okay.
Oh my god.
It's totally not okay.
At one time he was over here and he said there was a skeleton in our fireplace, which I don't like.
What does that even mean? Does that mean somebody died here?
I don't know. I mean, it's very possible somebody died here, but I don't think that every time somebody dies in a house, a ghost happens, you know?
Yeah, but, I mean, why would there be a skeleton in the fireplace? It sounds to me like somebody died, and then somebody tried to, like, get rid of the body and burned it in the fireplace. You know what I'm saying?
It does sound like that, but there's gotta be something else to it. Like, he was exposed to some sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that guy, Pumpkins?
Huh?
The Pumpkins guy.
The Pumpkins guy?
Yeah, he has a thing and he's like, fuck, I can't remember his name.
You talking about, like, Jack Skellington?
No. Pumpkins. His
Pumpkins.
I have to look him up
All I'm thinking about is that freaking spooky, scary skeleton dance. Have you seen that? The guy that wears, like, the pumpkin mask?
No, I don't mean, like, pumpkins. I mean, like, YouTube. He's a YouTube guy or a...
I've never heard of that.
David Pumpkins.
Is that his actual name?
Look, I mean, this is a thing, and... Yeah, he's David S. Pumpkins, and Jack is obsessed with him.
Oh, that's the video that I was just talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. The spooky, scary skeletons.
Yeah, that's the guy, David S. Pumpkins. It's like 100 times funnier without audio.
When did that even play on the CW? That looks so old.
I don't know, but it's just like this guy in a morph suit with a jack-o'-lantern on his head doing these rad-ass dance moves.
Here we go.
And then, like, the back of the head isn't even a pumpkin. It's just, like, a blatant string around the morph suit.
Yeah. We'll have to link that video, because that is just awesome. I love that.
Yeah,
it comes around every time around Halloween.
It does, but that's him. They've had him on SNL and everything.
That's funny. I never knew his name.
I don't know, but Jack has a little bit of The Shining, as far as we know, because apparently Sarah has said that, like, in the past 6 months, he started saying these really weird things.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
Children are just...
Kids.
When I was a kid, my mom got really freaked out because apparently I was, like, just, like, sitting around one day and I said something to her that my grandmother used to say, and she was like, "What?" And I said it again to her, and I never met my grandmother. She died much before I was born, and so, yeah, my mom was totally freaked out because there's nowhere I would have heard it except hearing it from my grandmother.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard similar stories where someone in the family passes away and then the child picks it up, or, like, they say something that the grandparent only would have known. Like, there's no way the mom could have told them or anything. That's really interesting.
It's really weird.
Oh.
So there's our spooky kids stories for the day.
I need to get a little bit farther away from, like, reality now. So, today we're doing groundbreaking horror films. Rachel is out of town again on business, so it's just Miranda and I and me. Sorry. I'm trying to brush up on my grammar because I'm going to be working.
No, wouldn't it be I?
No, because I would say it's just me.
Oh.
I would say it's just myself.
Oh,
right?
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I am terrible at grammar.
I am too. I'm
going to be working in the writing center at our university come fall, and I bought these horror grammar books.
Oh my god.
They're over there. One of them's called The Transitive Vampire.
That's funny.
And it just tells you in, like, with old-fashioned creepy drawings and, like,
that's awesome.
Horror examples how to do grammar.
That's so really cool.
Learn that now.
That's so cool.
But anyway, it's just Miranda and myself, I think.
We'll just roll with it.
Oh, God. Don't send the ESL students to me.
Oh, my gosh.
And we're going to be discussing groundbreaking horror films, meaning a horror film that did something new in the genre or made a bunch of money doing something new in the genre or otherwise started something.
Or highlighted something that was already there.
Yeah.
You know, but just kind of brought it to the forefront.
Right. So we're going to be discussing 2 very popular movies today. Miranda, do you want to do your disclaimer about
oh my gosh.
Don't fuck with us about our opinions?
Okay. So I was worried about picking my movie because, well, both of our movies have very large fan bases, and it's understandable. They're great movies, but we are not perfect people. Okay, I like your movie. So, and the majority of people, I would say,
I don't dislike it. I don't think. Yeah. Anyway,
well, it has a big fan base, has a big following.
Huge, yeah.
So we're not perfect people. So if we don't give these movies, you know, what you were expecting or wanting, it is what it is. We can only do so much.
There are about probably 100 other podcasts out there who did what you wanted.
Yeah.
About the movie, so go listen to those podcasts.
Exactly.
I mean, we're just going to talk about what we feel like talking about, because that's the beauty of the internet. Now, anyone can pick up a couple of $50 mics and a free audio recording program and say whatever the hell they want about pretty much anything. So,
yep.
You know what? Tough cookies.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, you know, if you have something to add, you could say something to us on Facebook.
I know. And I don't want to pretend like we're not totally ecstatic about conversation and debate with people who listen, because that's like some of the best stuff. Like that's what we want. But I mean, don't be an asshole about it. Honestly,
don't yell at us, because
we're talking about what's interesting to us, and if you have a problem with that, you can just go
pick your words lightly.
Take a long walk off a short pier.
There you go.
I don't know. So we didn't talk about this before we started, but just a reminder that we will be giving away a t-shirt pretty soon, and we've asked you to send us your favorite movie monsters and why. And we've received a submission or 2 that is just the movie monster. The movie monster and a GIF does not count as a submission. No matter how much we love you, you need to send us an explanation of why that monster is your favorite movie monster, not just the title, because grade school directions still apply to real life.
And we were planning on closing the giveaway by the time this episode is out, so maybe we'll just say, because I usually post them bright and early, well, not that bright and early, usually around 7:30 or 8. If you're listening to this and you still want to get your submission in, try to get it in, maybe you want to say like 6 or something. Yeah, so I guess just send it in to us before 6
p.m. Central Time. Yeah. Send in your submission any way you can if you still want to enter. We have a few submissions. Yeah, we have a good few to choose from. So if you want to add your submission to the pool, go ahead and do that by 6 p.m. on Monday the 17th.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So 6 p.m. on the 17th.
Yes.
Just make sure you get them into us. And yes, like Nikki said, not just like the name and the GIF. Try to...
GIFs are great, though. I love GIFs.
Is it pronounced GIF or GIF?
Well, there's a hot debate on that, and that's a whole other episode.
Okay.
The guy who made it says it's GIF, but he doesn't understand how the English language works, so it's GIF.
Oh, okay.
If he wanted to do it, he would have found a way for it to be a J. Because
Yeah.
G's don't make that sound.
Yeah.
Unless you're Italian.
Fair enough.
If they're in
Yeah.
that place in the world.
Yeah. Fair
In the
enough.
world. No, in the word. So, but yeah.
I was really nervous about my pick because, yes, it is John Carpenter's Halloween, the original, not the Rob Zombie movie. I felt like I had to pick this movie. If we're going to do groundbreaking horror, I mean, you kind of have to do Halloween, even though it's kind of a scary thing to talk about because it has such a big following. A lot of the times when you meet horror fans, you ask them what their favorite horror movie is, and it seems like 99% of them say Halloween.
Really?
You disagree with that?
No, I guess I've never asked a lot of people what their favorite horror movie is.
Yeah, it seemed like people who are, okay, I guess I should be more specific, like people who are involved in the horror community, like actively contribute, like podcasters or people who write articles for different websites or,
Just
a lot
horror buffs, basically.
Yeah. So people who are actively involved in the community, it's usually Halloween. And it's not surprising because it's, it's not just a good movie for a horror movie. It's just a solid good movie in general, which I think was why it was such a big deal. But yeah, I mean, as most people know, it was directed by John Carpenter, who has done a lot of incredible things, including The Thing, which is one of my favorites. So yeah, John Carpenter, he's super famous, but when he did Halloween, he wasn't that big of a deal quite yet. So the film completely changed the slasher genre. I mean, you didn't really have a lot of slasher movies. I think a lot of people would debate, that they're Texas Chainsaw, I would say, was probably not the first, but probably it's one of the earlier ones. I think Psycho is considered a slasher. It's considered a lot of things, though, so it's kind of questionable where Psycho goes, but Halloween really changed the slasher genre and really pulled it to the spotlight. Carpenter was actually picked by a producer, Irwin Yablans, after he saw one of Carpenter's films. He wanted to create a film with the same impact that The Exorcist had, which I found really interesting. And I almost picked The Exorcist too, but then I realized we pretty much talked about it.
Yeah, we talked about the book, actually, I think more. So I think that's still up for it,
Well, we'll give it an honorable mention.
Definitely.
So he wanted to create a film that had the same amount of impact as The Exorcist, and I would argue that they really did, probably more. The movie was actually originally titled The Babysitter Murders, but Yablans proposed that it happen on Halloween and be titled Halloween. So I almost feel like if it was titled The Babysitter Murders, it wouldn't have been as popular.
You know what's funny,
it's
though?
Kind of a dorky name.
There's a documentary called Killer Legends, which is by the people who made the Cropsey documentary, and it discusses 4 very popular urban legends, and one of those is the babysitter getting murdered while she's home alone. And it really, it actually, it tells the true story behind that. There was actually, in a neighborhood, there were a couple of gruesome babysitter murders, but the source also of the babysitter murder legend. And I don't actually remember whether Halloween was mentioned, but I think it probably was.
I'm sure it was.
And I don't know which one came first, though. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Works.
I do know that Halloween came out in 1978, but I don't know when.
I don't know when the murders were. I'd have to look it up. But I definitely recommend that if you're interested in Halloween and how the babysitter murder thing started, because it's that's kind of a viable secondary title for Halloween, especially given that it happened.
Yeah, so. That's interesting. I'll have to check that out. But it was actually made with a really low budget. It doesn't seem low, but in movie terms it is. It's like $300,000 that this movie was made for. So they had to cut a lot of corners on like set design and costuming, which is where we get the famous Captain Kirk mask. Which,
yes,
I'm just in love with the fact that they did that. Like, a lot of people still don't even know that that's just,
it's
like,
William Shatner's face.
Yeah, it's absolutely hilarious. But they totally, like, they messed with it. They made the eyes bigger. They colored it differently and everything like that. But they changed it up a little bit. But it was originally a Captain Kirk mask. And they were trying to, in the process of using it, trying to make him, like, emotionless and almost faceless. Like, because they really wanted to give him the feeling that he wasn't even human, almost, which I think worked very well. The fact that they used a Captain Kirk mask to turn a character into, like, an emotionless, non-human thing, I just feel like that's kind of insulting a little bit, but it's also funny.
But he has, like, very, like, and he has a very interesting facial structure, I guess.
Yeah.
So I can understand how that could work.
Yeah.
Completely whited out and, like, the cheekbones kind of highlighted and everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it worked out very well for them. They actually purchased Jamie Curtis's clothes at a JCPenney store for, like, under $100.
That's how you do it.
Heck yeah, that's exactly what I would do. And they filmed this movie in 20 days. In the spring in Pasadena, California.
It looks so October.
Yeah, it does. And they said that the pumpkins were really hard for them to find, and they had to make the leaves, like fall leaves, and they had to use them over and over for different scenes.
Can I ask why they didn't do it in the fall?
I have no idea why they didn't do it in the fall.
That would have been so much easier.
Yeah, I have no idea why they didn't do it then, but yeah, they did it in Pasadena, California during the spring. It's very weird.
Do the leaves not change there? Is it too warm of a climate or something?
Maybe, because I don't think it really cools down that much over in California now that I think about it. So that might have been...
It depends on where you are, because I was in San Francisco. It is freezing as fuck in May there.
Isn't that right on the ocean, though?
I was over at Alcatraz in May and I wore shorts and a tank top, and I was freezing my little butt off there.
Huh.
Because it's so windy.
Yeah.
It's so cold. You have to drive a good ways into California before it's warm.
Well, I think, isn't Pasadena kind of, like, more so on the southern end of California?
I don't know.
I think it might be, but that could totally be wrong. So, I have no idea, but...
Geography lessons.
Yeah, no kidding.
No idea.
So, and they shot it just, like, in a neighborhood. They found, like, an abandoned house and everything, and they used a lot of the families in the neighborhood for the trick-or-treat scenes. They just had the families dress their kids up.
That's so fun!
Isn't that so awesome? Like, they just ended up being an extra in one of the most popular horror movies ever made. No big deal or anything. Oh my gosh.
Who gets that chance in their life?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So the script took approximately 3 weeks to make, and they were inspired by the Celtic tradition of Samhain.
Samhain?
Yeah, sure. I don't know.
Neo-pagan.
I don't know how these things are pronounced.
Okay. Ask someone to make an educated guess of how that word is pronounced.
I mean, it looks like it.
Samhain.
Yeah, that's really...
Like, where do you get that W?
I did not expect it to actually, like, be corrected on that. That's so funny.
Yeah, but would you expect it to be so much different?
No, it doesn't make any sense. That's hilarious.
So, Samhain. Yeah, that's what it is.
Samhain.
Now you know. The more you know. The more useless stuff you know.
So many useless facts tonight. Okay, so one of the producers, Deborah Hill, about this whole Samhain inspiration, and she said, the idea was that you couldn't kill evil, and that was how we came about the story. We went back to the old idea of Samhain, that Halloween was the night where all the souls are let out to wreak havoc on the living, and then came up with a story about the most evil kid who ever lived. And when John came up with this fable of a town with a dark secret of someone who once lived there, and now that evil has come back, that's what made Halloween work. Yeah, I mean, just starting out from that premise of, like,
evil can never be killed.
Yeah, and that it comes back on Halloween. I mean, I didn't even really think about it. The biggest quote of the movie is, like, the night he came home. Makes a lot of sense, with that quote. With the low budget, I guess Jamie Lee Curtis only earned, like, $8,000
now
from this movie.
After the movie was released and then they started making back the budget, did she then get...
I didn't find anything on that. I just found that she got $8,000 out of the deal because she wasn't
expecting anything.
Well, and she wasn't a big deal at this time. John Carpenter wanted her in the movie mostly because he knew that he could kind of push the fact that her mother was in Psycho and that was going to be really good advertising. And that's kind of why he picked her. Well, lo and behold, she's obviously incredible. Yeah. And so, she didn't make much out of this. But there wasn't much advertising either. It was completely by word of mouth. It wasn't released everywhere. It was only released in, like, select theaters because it was obviously so low budget. It wasn't known very well at all. Well, no advertising, that's what happens. So yeah, I don't know if they ever gave her more money for it. I would expect that they would after how big of a deal it became. But at first, the critics did not like the movie. They thought it was a very badly made movie. But now it has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I think critics are starting to, as time rolls on, are becoming more respectful of the horror genre and starting to see more of it, instead of it just being like
a throwaway sort of thing for fun that never gives you anything new.
Right. Like, I think a lot of critics look at it as, like, just being blood and guts and savagery and, like, base human enjoyments. And I think critics are really starting to look past that and see more into horror movies and see them for what they really are. But yeah, Halloween really made a comeback when it came to the critics. So yeah, it's known as a resounding success, like I said, not just as a horror movie, but as a film in general. I mean, there are a lot of people who've told me, like, they study Halloween in film classes, which I think is absolutely incredible that we're getting horror movies into film classes. I think it's awesome. I took a film class and I was promised that we were going to touch every genre, and horror is the only thing we didn't touch.
Oh, really?
I was pissed. I feel like I got cheated entirely.
I was in this thing called College for Kids we have around here, and basically you'd be in junior high and you could go get a taste of what certain college classes were like. Yeah. And of course I signed up for a film class along with a mythology class, which was great. I think Sean Leary was a guest there. That was the first time I saw Sean Leary. I was like 11 years old then. And they showed, I think, a scene from Jaws or something. Oh, yeah. And scenes from, like, different horror movies, actually. And I guess what they were showing was how sound affects our perception of film. So they would show it without the sound and then with the sound. And then, it's always so much more suspenseful with the score or the sound effects, and they used horror as an example of that, but I don't think, it was a class for 11 to 12-year-olds, so I'm not sure they would have touched on any deeper themes or showed any more than that, but they did touch on it at least. So I get that is a memory I have.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
I'm lucky to have.
That's really cool. Okay, so I'm just talking about kind of like what I felt like worked in the movie, and one of those being that the violence in the film is not excessive. It's always necessary. It isn't a movie where it's just like hacking and slashing all the time, which I would consider like something like Friday the 13th. It's just not excessive, like something like that. I think that Friday the 13th really took the violence really far, but I think with Halloween, it had a sort of grace with it. It was always necessary, I felt the violence was. And there's also a sort of ambiguity about Myers, as I talked about earlier, which is kind of their whole purpose. He's not, you're always questioning, like, is he human or is he like something paranormal? Is he, what is he? You never really know what he is, and that really contributes to that fear. And it's also that there's been a lot of mention about the fact that John Carpenter kind of directed it thinking about Psycho, and it's very similar to the way Psycho is directed. So I know that had a lot to do with why it went so well with critics and everything. It also proposed the concept of the final girl. This is pretty much the first time we ever see a final girl. And I have to say, I think Laurie Strode being the first final girl, I'm so happy with it. I mean, they couldn't have done, they could have probably done better, but at the point in time where socially everything was at, just a phenomenal job. She's not perfect, but
right.
My God.
Well, there's the whole, and when we discussed the Scream franchise, which I'm excited, she's the virgin, she's the good girl, she's the babysitter, she does everything right, and it's implied that that's the reason that she lives, which is the problem I have with it. But I'm not saying I don't enjoy this movie thoroughly and really appreciate the place it has in horror history and what it started. It's just, it started a trope.
Yeah, and that's why I say, like, it wasn't perfect, but it's also kind of the first time that we see a woman save herself. And I know people are going to say, like, she wouldn't have lived if it wasn't for Loomis. But the truth is that Loomis couldn't kill Myers either. He still comes back to life.
Nope.
And
she dealt with it a lot longer than he did. She went through, like, trial upon trial.
Right. I mean, we really see a woman save herself for the first time, I think. And that's why I say that something that works really well in it. And like you said, I mean, it definitely isn't perfect, because I do that whole like virginal thing with slasher movies does bother me a bit. Yeah.
No, the whole virginal thing. Well, it's also the, 3 or 4 things. It's like you're virginal, you don't drink, you don't do drugs, and you're not gay or black.
Yeah.
The black person's the first one to go.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. When I was going to Scott Community College and I had to take a public speaking class, we had to do a speech about, like, teaching people things. And at the time, I didn't do anything except for homework, pretty much. So I was like, what the hell am I going to teach these people? I don't know how to do anything. And I kind of sat down and I was like, well, I know horror movies. And so I did my presentation on how to survive a horror movie. And my first slide was figure out which trope you are.
Oh, that's so...
Yeah, it was perfect. Everybody loved it. It was such a fun time. But yeah, one of them, I was in the middle of people, or in front of people, so I couldn't say something like, I think people typically call the whore sort of a thing. Right. I can't remember what I said.
The jock.
Yeah, I can't remember what I think I said, like, the promiscuous girl.
Oh,
and and then, like, the innocent girl and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it definitely created not a great trope, but at least women save themselves, now, instead of always needing a man to save them. You know what I mean?
Yep. Or they just get killed, and it's like a huge exploitation thing.
Right.
Like, it's some woman running around in her bra and underwear, and you just know she's gonna get her intestines are gonna be on the ground pretty soon.
Oh my gosh.
Like, all...
Yeah.
That was not the case with Halloween at all.
No. Well, there was that one girl...
See, you know what? I withdraw that statement because I'm thinking, like, the girl who wanted to have sex with her boyfriend. Yeah. It's funny because his name was Paul. Like, Mom always teases me about that because we watched this movie every fall. And she's like, the only thing she can think about is having sex with her boyfriend. Like, she gets killed.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it always goes. Like, you see all of the memes on Facebook that are like, Jason only goes after, the girls that are out having sex or something like that. They're kind of funny, but
you're welcome, Jason.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say about that?
No, I'm sorry. This is your thing.
No, you're fine.
I'll shut up.
You're fine. I'm just like, I don't know if there's anything else we want to say about it. Because I feel like we have a whole Final Girl episode that we're going to do, aren't we? Okay, so we can talk about it then, if we have more to say. Oh, this movie also popularized the idea of a killer having a theme song, which I didn't know, and I thought that was so fun. Because now you think about, like, all of the famous slashers, they all have their theme songs. I love it. That just makes me so happy.
The new new Scream show, which you need to watch because the result will make you laugh so hard who the killer was.
Okay.
You just, like, watch the first season, please. It's only 10 episodes long.
Okay.
But they do this thing where, like, the original killer was obsessed with this girl he called Daisy, so the theme song's like, Daisy.
Oh my gosh.
It's really creepy.
I'm sure. I think I've heard that song.
Yeah.
That's funny. Kind of like the Tiptoe Through the Tulips song.
Oh, yeah.
You
will never hear that again without thinking about a little boy standing in the corner of your kitchen while you take out the garbage.
God. I just had to look behind me. I was like, oh, God. So creepy. Yeah, so I thought that was super fun. I mean, Freddy Krueger has his own. I mean, I think everybody has their own theme song now. It's so fun. And also, Carpenter really, like, did a lot of shooting from the killer's point of view, which builds tension, and it was a totally new concept. And because of this, a lot of people will say that it's kind of the jumping off point for the new wave of horror that came after this movie. And we do see this a lot, like the seeing from the killer's point of view. We do see that a lot after this movie. Okay, and I just want to say a little bit about, like, what doesn't work about this movie, just because why not? First of all, not really all that much. It's kind of a fantastic movie. Mm-hmm. But then there's the third movie, which is kind of, I would say, an embarrassment to the series, and I don't know why it exists. So the third movie is called Season of the Witch, And my notes are literally just, seriously, what the fuck? The movie has nothing to do with witches. Doesn't even have anything to do with Michael Myers. He doesn't even show up in the movie. Have you seen Season of the Witch?
No, I've only seen the original and the Rob Zombie one.
Oh my gosh. You should just watch it just to watch it, because it doesn't make any sense. I remember the first time that I sat down and I, like, had a Halloween marathon, because when I was in high school, my parents used to just let me, like, not go to school on Halloween.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and Sci-Fi does all those cool, like, horror movie marathons, and that's what I would do all day. But yeah, I remember they had a Halloween marathon, and I remember sitting through Season of the Witch and being like calling to my dad and being like, what is this? Does Michael Myers even show up in this? And he just never does. It's kind of an embarrassment. Okay, and then this is just a personal thing that I know people aren't going to be happy about, but I don't really care. I don't like the size of Michael Myers in the original Halloween movie. I think that if you're supposed to question what he is, if you're supposed to question whether he is a man or if he's supernatural, why is he the size of an average man? To me, he seems so small and, well, not small, but like, just so average. He never scared me, like, just him as a person. I love the movie. And I think the only reason I feel this way is because I saw the remake, and I prefer the Michael Myers in Rob Zombie's movie, because he is a giant beast of a man. And if he was ever coming towards me, dear God, I'd probably pass out. I would be so scared. Those are, like, the only critiques I really have.
I see both. I like, see both sides of that, because on one hand, it's like, if he's the size of an average man, that could be scarier, because you still don't know what he is, and he is the size of an average man.
Yeah.
So that adds, like, I guess you have to really be thinking about it. I don't know if that would immediately impress something upon people. On the other hand, I get what you're saying. And then with the big thing, like, oh, that's awful. Because I'm, like, 5'3", so, like, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
And after I saw Rob Zombie's Halloween, I slept in the next day. I had, like, you know those dreams where you think you woke up, but you didn't? And it was, like, 5 or 6 times in the morning. He comes into my bedroom.
Oh, my God.
I get up. I try to run away.
Yeah.
I wake up.
Yeah.
He comes into my bedroom. I get up over and over
That's
and over
awful.
again. And I did not have that reaction with the original movie.
Yeah.
So I think it was the way mostly that it was presented, like the backstory and everything. But
yeah, I personally really do love the Rob Zombie remake. It's very controversial to say that again.
I like it too, but
I think he did a great job with it. And I think people only get mad about it because there's this thing in the horror genre where you can't remake like popular movies. It's like illegal or something. I don't know. It's a big deal, but I think he did a phenomenal job with the remake, but nothing's ever going to beat the original.
No.
You know, I mean, you can't, it's impossible, but I think he did a fantastic job with it. And I think it's a really fun movie. The second one, you really need to watch the second one just to see how bad it is, because it doesn't even make sense.
Oh, man.
Like, the plot line doesn't make sense. So the second one was I don't know what happened. I don't know what Rob Zombie was thinking, but
remakes can be a bad thing. I think, like, 2 things with that. One, I understand, like, especially with this one, because Michael Myers isn't someone you know anything about, and that's part of the horror.
Yeah.
And so when Rob Zombie goes back and tries to explicate his history and make him a human, it could have a bad effect, because it's like, well, you explained it all. Yeah. It's ruined. Right. I was more horrified by that, but I can understand. I'm, like, a huge Pirates of the Caribbean fan. Okay. I've been obsessed with it since I was 10. And if people explain things about Jack Sparrow's past, I get angry. Because the appeal of the character is that you don't know. Yeah. Everything that has happened, or, like, where he got all the shit he wears on him and stuff. And I just don't fucking try to explain it. Like, in the new movie, they did that whole young Jack Sparrow. I don't know if you saw...
I haven't seen it yet, no.
I mean, wait until... like, you don't have to pay any money to see it. But it's like the whole young Jack Sparrow gets his name because of this and everything. And I'm like, I don't want to know that because the story is so much less impactful than it is with not knowing.
Right.
You know, that's what fan fiction is for, people. Don't fill in those holes. We can fill them in. We're okay with that.
Yeah.
So I understand, I understand both of those points of view.
For me, it was... I enjoyed the backstory of Michael Myers so much, and I think that's why it worked so well for me. I don't know. I just found, like, the original Michael Myers, like I said, I mean, he wasn't that scary to me, like, as a character. If he came walking towards me on the street, I'd just be kind of like, okay, you fucking freak, like, I'm just gonna go that way, you know? But with the whole, I think Rob Zombie really did a great job with the whole backstory. And I want to go into counseling. I'm really interested in psychology. And so for me, I think that everybody, I mean, you aren't entirely created by your environment, but it has a lot to do with it, you know? So I loved the fact that we found out where he came from and what brought him to that point. But, you know, it does kind of hurt that whole idea of like, what is he? Where did he come from? Why is he like this sort of a thing? So yeah, I totally understand both sides, but is there anything else you want to say about it?
No, I just think that was a really good pick for a groundbreaking horror film because it's something like my mom, as a horror fan who was born in the 60s, watches every single Halloween without fail. And it's definitely... and because as much as I always hate it when people say like, so I was listening to Fleetwood Mac at work and this person who is older than me came in and said, well, oh, how'd you, figure that out? And why I wouldn't expect you to be listening to that. I'm like, well, I'm sorry I wasn't born 30 years earlier.
Yeah, no
Is
kidding.
that my fault?
Yeah.
Well, media prevails, but there's also some sort of experience that people who are a lot older than us have had just with seeing those movies in the theaters and like experiencing those movies during the time period, because we always talk about how horror movies comment on the time that they were made in and everything. And so like there's a certain respect I have for like my mom watches Halloween every Halloween because like to her that is the ultimate horror movie, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Like that you have to respect the origins of things.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, for sure. And us saying, like, that we love the Rob Zombie remake does not in any way, shape, or form mean that we don't have respect for the original. Because, like I said, like, nothing can beat the original. Absolutely nothing. It's still a phenomenal movie, and nothing's gonna change that. But sometimes remakes can get things right.
And with this one... with this one though, I see the original as a thing and then the remake as a thing. Like when I watch the original, I don't think about the remake. The original is its own little entity, and the remake is also its own thing. Yeah. So
definitely agree.
So I did a film that was made quite a bit later than Halloween. Go forward to 1999 with The Blair Witch Project. Have to thank Rachel for letting me use this suggestion because I was thinking about the same thing as her, but she wasn't going to be on this episode, so I was allowed to do this one.
I was kind of jealous that you picked it because I was like, "Damn, I love that movie."
It's it is not even arguably a groundbreaking horror film, and it basically popularized the found footage genre. Basically, I'm going to just give you a little bit of history on it and talk about, the filming process and the audience reaction and stuff. So, the directors were film students who decided that paranormal documentaries are actually scarier than horror films, which is true because I've spent many a night watching Paranormal Witness going, the lights are not going off tonight. They made this film with $60,000, which is way less than Halloween.
Yeah, holy cow.
Guess how much they grossed?
Probably a ridiculous amount. I have no idea.
$250 million.
My God.
Yes. So, in case you live under a rock. The Blair Witch Project was made in 1999, and it's a found footage, of course, horror film about 3 film students who go to investigate the myth of the Blair Witch in Maryland, and they go hiking in the woods, and they get lost, and then they start getting tormented by the witches and stuff at night. Not just witches, but the witch at night, and allegedly victims of a serial killer who lived in the woods, who killed children, and they all eventually go missing. I don't want to explain the plot, because if I explain the plot, then there's not much to be experienced from the film. It's a very, like, real-time sort of film.
Well, there's only so much that you can really explain with that movie, because it's kind of the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, literally. It's
literally. So, it's so 90s, and it's just very, very 90s. And in the beginning of the film, they interview townspeople in the town of Burkittsville, which is formerly Blair, where the Blair Witch comes from. And some of these townspeople who were interviewed were not actors, and some were planted actors.
Yeah.
So the actors who were filming did not know who was an actor and who wasn't. And this is why we're going to increasingly find, as we talk about this, part of the reason that the film and the mockumentary made about it were so convincing to people. It's just it's not scripted, so it's so naturally told. They don't have anything, they're not saying any lines that they were told to say. And there's a moment where they're interviewing, like, a middle-aged mom. She has a toddler on her hip, and the mom is being asked about the Blair Witch, and she's saying, well, the legend goes the witch and the blah, blah, blah did this. And the toddler starts screaming and crying and trying to cover the mom's mouth and going, no, 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 no,
Oh
no.
my God.
And you're like, how did they get her to do that?
Yeah.
And also she's going, it's okay, Mommy. It's okay. Mommy's just telling a scary story. It's not real. And then she looks at the camera and goes, it's real. Out of the toddler's vision. Yeah. And so you're just like going, this is like bizarrely convincing. Yeah. Even if you're going, this can't be real. So the script was 35 pages long, and it basically outlined what was to happen in in that space of time. They filmed, what I saw was 19 to 24 hours of footage, and they whittled that down to an hour and a half.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I also think that's why it feels so natural and believable.
Yeah.
More than the witch myth, the Blair Witch actually really gets at the psychology of being lost. If you've ever been lost in the woods, lost anywhere, it'll really ring with you. And even if you haven't, you're there. It's like you're there with them. Yeah. There's a moment that every time someone talks about this movie, I just go, it's not the same log. It's the same log! That is like the one thing I remember about this movie. They are 3 students with a map. Like, this is before cell phones. They have a map, and it's just like a rough terrain map of the area, which I don't know how the fuck that's going to get you anywhere. Yeah. They have a compass, and that's it. And they have the trust, which slowly disintegrates. So they don't believe. They're like, this is America. You can't get lost in America. We've destroyed most of our natural resources. Yeah. They don't believe it when they get lost, because they're like, well, someone will find us. They finally get so lost they run out of food. They're hungry. They're being tormented by this kind of supernatural entity, and they're yelling at each other, blaming each other for being lost, getting lost, and finally, like, there's this moment where the girl keeps filming, and that's the excuse for continuing to film even though they're lost while they're making a documentary. One of the guys is like, we're not making a documentary about being lost, we're making a documentary about a witch, so stop filming us. But she is using the camera as a lens, like, to disassociate, basically.
Yeah.
To not make it seem like reality. And finally, one of the guys gets so mad at Heather, the lead girl, that he just, like, films her crying up against this tree because they're so lost and hungry and scared. And he's like, oh, well, so you're an actor, and here's your motivation. You're lost, you're angry in the woods, and no one here is here to help you. There's a fucking witch, and she keeps leaving shit outside your door. There's no one... Sorry. There's no one here to help you. She left little trinkets, and you fucking took one of them. She ran after us. There's no one here to help you. We walked for 15 hours today. We ended up in the same place. There's no one here to help you. That's your motivation. So it's like they're all blaming each other about everything, and the situation is just so absurd. They start, like, reminiscing about all the foods that they would eat if they could have food. And actually, with this lost thing, the reason their reaction seems so real is because they were.
Yes, I was waiting for you to say it.
So
that they actually, like, left them in the woods.
Not left, but close.
Yeah.
So Greg Hale was the producer, and he was formerly in the military. And he used methods from his training to push the actors to a psychological verge. He deprived them of food, he forced them to hike long distances during the day, and during the night shoots, crew members would stalk them, harass them, make noises. You know, I mean, of course they were going fucking insane, and no wonder it seemed so convincing.
Yeah.
And that was the original film, but what I find even more convincing and more interesting is the mockumentary that was made.
I don't think I've seen it.
Okay, so it's on the DVD, and it aired on the Sci-Fi Channel about a year before, I think, the film was supposed to be released.
Oh my
God. And
God.
it presented this Blair Witch thing and the story of the missing students as real. There were interviews with the professor of Heather, like, saying he felt guilty. You can't detect a hint of acting from these people.
Yeah.
So there are fake ship logs, fake letters, fake newspaper articles, scanned journals, footage of a serial killer who allegedly came down from the mountain years after the Blair Witch and said, "I'm finally finished," which sounds like a total awesome serial killer story.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even real at all. He was the child killer who they said was in the woods.
Oh, okay.
Like, in that house, and he said the Blair Witch had told him to do it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
There's baby pictures of Heather. They use the real actors' names, by the way. Interviews with the professor, like I said. And there's only, like, tiny historical discrepancies where they wrote in print, and it was in the 1800s, so I was like, they would not have written in print then. But, like, they're so tiny that you wouldn't even know. And we're given, like, so much more background story about the Blair Witch, and that actually lends more fear to it, because you're like, oh, shit. This is what this is, because they really only hint at the background to it throughout the whole film, and then you're like, why is it that they're experiencing this? Like, you didn't understand the serial killer thing and how it tied into the witch, I don't think, until you saw the documentary, the mockumentary.
Yeah.
Okay, before I talk about, I know I'm talking about more of the film and less of how it's groundbreaking, but there are some things in it that were also really unique as a film project from a couple of students. They actually use this, like, the Blair Witch as a sympathetic figure in the mockumentary. They gave her a backstory. They said what happened to her. They said why she's doing what she's doing. So her name was Ellie Kedward, which is an anagram of Edward Kelly, who was a 17th century mystic and alchemist.
Oh, okay.
And they said that she was convicted of... she was probably confused. But she was convicted of witchcraft, and...
Oh, jeez.
They made up this story about this woman, making her actual, although she isn't real, like, which is the story of probably many women in America, and especially in the East Coast at that time. She was accused of being the Blair Witch, and she was taken out into the woods, and she was tied up to a tree and was allowed to die of exposure.
Yeah.
And there's one point in the mockumentary where they say that even the trees did her bidding at what point, and you're just like, yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because you're supposed to think of the Blair Witch as this outside thing where you're terrified of her, and by the time you see this documentary, you're like, you know, I see why she had all that hate in her.
Yeah.
And I think it's very thoughtful of the filmmakers.
Did you ever see the new one? The new
I did
Blair
not,
Witch?
and I want to now.
It was very good. I thought it was very good. I don't think it did that well, but I think it did a very good job. Or
Catherine
they did a good
said
job.
it was solid.
Yeah. It had a lot of the claustrophobia sort of stuff in it. And when you say, like, the trees did her bidding, well, the trees do her bidding a lot in the new one.
So they even incorporated interviews with a modern-day Wiccan. It was a man, which I thought was kind of an odd choice, although some men are Wiccans. He was talking about how, like, witchcraft isn't scary, and people mistake this a lot, and it's really just not supposed to be what it's portrayed as, which I thought was really awesome of them to, like, make a movie about a scary witch, but then have the subtext, or if you dig deep enough, of, like, maybe, like in the autopsy of Jane Doe, she wasn't a witch.
Yeah.
But she was created.
Yeah.
They created the very thing they feared.
Exactly, yeah.
By persecuting her.
Yep.
So that was, like, a brave and thoughtful move, I thought, of, like, two fucking undergrads.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, male undergrads, too. Sorry, but, I mean, most guys aren't going to pick up on that. They're not going to think, oh, the history of witches.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just, you know, a lot of people don't.
For
people
sure.
in general. But so, there's that, and I think, in a way, that makes it groundbreaking in a way that most people wouldn't consider it groundbreaking.
Yeah.
So, the main way that it's groundbreaking is that people believed that it was real.
Yeah.
They believed these students went missing, and they believed the Blair Witch was a real myth. So, some of this information that I took in this section is from an article called Please Help Me, All I Want to Know Is It Real or Not? By Schreier. Like I said, you can find anything on the internet.
Yeah.
So, the Blair Witch Project is thought to be the first widely released film marketed primarily by the internet. That's how old we are now.
Yeah.
Well, I was 6 when it came out.
It came out in 1999. I was 2. Yeah.
We were still, like, too young to understand this shit.
Oh, yeah.
So they marketed this film as factual. They didn't give anything away about, you know, it's not a real thing. So huge debate sprung up about whether or not this film was actually real, which I would have loved to have been there in hindsight.
Yeah.
The website is full of, like, faux news reports about the students, and people went around at film festivals with missing persons flyers trying to ask for, like, any info about the students who went missing. But I found out from this article on Dipley, I'm not familiar with all this clickbait stuff, that there was a real kidnapping that had recently happened, so the filmmakers were, like, told to knock it off. Because they're like, no, real people are missing, so just, like, fucking stop it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's not their fault, but that's kind of funny that that happened. IMDb for the first year, I believe, after the film was released, listed the actors as missing.
Oh my
presumed
goodness.
Dead.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So even the actors believe that the Blair Witch myth was real while they were filming.
Jeez.
Heather Donahue's mom received hundreds of sympathy cards.
Yep. Yeah, I heard about that. And phone calls, didn't she? Didn't she get phone calls
Probably
too?
phone calls, yeah. And so many people visited the woods in Maryland where they filmed that they scared off the game during hunting season.
Oh my god.
That's how legitimate everything seemed. So I read an interesting article, and this was the one by Schreier, that was written in 2004, which was 5 years after the Blair Witch Project was actually released, that said he or she, I'm not sure, analyzed some emails, and I don't know how they got access to these emails, but emails that mentioned the Blair Witch Project. And 40% of the sample size, at least temporarily, was uncertain whether it was real or not.
Jeez.
5 years later.
Yeah.
Like, almost half of people still didn't know whether it was real or not.
It's crazy.
So, there's just a couple more things about this. Like, analyzing it as a picture by itself. I think there was a critic that kind of perfectly summed up how I feel about it. And she's Lisa Schwartzbaum of Entertainment Weekly. She gave a B to the film and said, "As a horror picture, the film may not be much more than a cheeky game, a novelty with the cool, blurry look of the avant-garde artifact. But as a manifestation of multimedia synergy, it's pretty spooky."
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to really just think about the mockumentary and everybody's reaction to it, and that makes it fucking scary.
Yeah.
It does. And if, when you watch it by itself, there's like an honest trailer for the Blair Witch Project that I watched last night. Have you ever seen the honest trailers?
No.
They do a bunch of different films, and it's like this really dry humor of the typical male over voice of a trailer, and they show a bunch of clips.
Yeah.
And for the Blair Witch Project, it was like, featuring a bunch of kids whose names you only know because they're always shouting them at each other. Featuring sticks, rocks, more sticks.
Oh my god.
And some shaky camera footage of the ground.
Oh my god, that's perfect.
That's kind of how I feel about the Blair Witch Project, in a way. But also, like, I do respect it as something that was done differently for the first time in horror. So, I tried to gather some things about how it reflects what we're actually scared of in real life, besides the obvious of being lost and, going to investigate. Like, say you and I went to see the Black Angel and she came alive and was like, fuck you all, and just killed us with her eyes.
Yeah.
Like, that would be an obvious sort of fear. But another film critic, said that this film is scary because it's an embodiment of horror modernizing its ability to be all-encompassing and expressing the fears of American society. In an age where anyone can film whatever they like, horror needn't be a cinematic expression of what terrifies the cinema goer. It can simply be the medium through which terror is captured by the average American can be showcased. So that's all those things you saw on the internet of, like, the girl actually getting kicked by a buffalo in Yellowstone Park because she touched it, and, like, being kicked into a tree, like, everything we capture on our cell phones and, like, on our cameras and everything like that, it's actually just a way to express, like, the horror of that like, we can actually see. It's not fabricated horror.
Right.
It's we can see what we saw in front of us again.
Yeah.
We can see what other people experienced that is horrifying again.
Right, yeah.
Which I think is a great one. But someone else wrote their thesis on the voyeuristic aspect of it. Oh. That, like, basically you get a sort of shock and thrill and pleasure out of seeing people, like, bite the dust.
That's interesting.
Like, it's the same with true crime. I think a lot of people say, and I'm one of them, a lot of people say that, like, oh, I'm interested in the justice aspect of it, and I'm interested in, like, because other victims have experienced things that I've experienced, which is all totally valid. But I also think there's many of us who have a part of us who, like, we like to see other people's pain. It's not because we want them to be in pain, but, like, we're curious.
Yeah.
We're all curious about it. And I think that's part of the found footage film, is that it just kind of takes away that layer of you don't have to suspend your disbelief so much to get that sort of feeling.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, when my mom was a kid, this was one of the movies that absolutely terrified her. Like, when she was growing up, she watched horror movies all the time, and it was The Exorcist and it was The Blair Witch Project. Those were the two movies that really got to her, and still, I think, get to her. I know The Exorcist does. We haven't watched The Blair Witch in a long time, but I know that movie really freaked her out, and I do believe that for the longest time she thought it was real, too. And I think it has a lot to do with you know, we can kind of sit here and imagine, like, oh, if I were in that situation, I would be fine. Like, I wouldn't freak out. I wouldn't think it'd be the witch. But when you see people in that situation and you have this belief that, okay, this is real, this is all happening, I think it's a, like, I can relate to you sort of a thing. Like
you're in their shoes.
Yeah,
almost.
like it gives you the ability to admit that, oh my God, you know, this is how I would react. Like, you get rid of that macho side where it's like, oh, I'd be totally fine. I could totally handle it. And you see people who are responding that way and you realize that, oh my God, like, this is real and this is how people actually respond, and am I really all that different? They did the same thing with Paranormal Activity. And I remember when Paranormal Activity came out, my parents went and saw it. They went and saw it when I was gone from the house overnight or something, and I was pissed. I was so mad when I found out that they went, but they told me that it was like I wouldn't have been able to handle it, and it was terrifying because when they aired it, it was completely, you know, this is a true story. This is all true events. There isn't anything fake about it. For me, like, sitting through it the first time that I watched, I don't even remember when first Paranormal Activity came out, but, you know, it's kind of that same feeling. I can't imagine, you know, sitting in a situation and realizing, oh my God, I'm actually, like, in a horror movie right now. Mm-hmm. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's definitely that. I mean, I could talk about Paranormal Activity, but I don't want to because it's like I don't want to cut more stuff out.
Yeah.
So more stuff later about that. But
Have you seen that Bigfoot one?
No, but I want to.
I can't even remember what it's called.
I can't remember, but
Willow Creek. That's what it's called.
Yep.
Oh my God, it's so bad. It's funny.
Oh no,
it's god awful. It's hilarious how bad it is. It's like 20 minutes of them sitting in a tent screaming. Like, real time, 20 minutes.
Kind of felt like the Blair Witch Project, though that was only an hour and a half long, and I seriously felt like 45 minutes of it was. Oh my God! What the fuck was that? That's really
more piles of rocks. No.
You know, like, that's all I got.
Yeah.
Like, but I like I said, I understand why it is what it is, but I also go, there's so much room for improvement.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not there's a point where I'm not experiencing the anxiety that they're experiencing, and I'm actually experiencing boredom.
Oh my gosh.
Because I know I'm on my couch, and I've seen the same image over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, God, I need to paint my nails. So,
yeah.
But
yeah, I think, I mean, there's definitely an audience of people out there who feel the same way. There's definitely a lot of people who do get bored by the movie as well. So, you know, there's a following, but there's also a following of people who don't like it quite a substantial amount. So, and that's why.
Yeah,
I mean, think it's boring
both ways. So
yeah,
but yeah, so we have to. Oh, what our next? I actually know what our episode is next week.
Isn't it haunted houses?
Great. We are doing haunted houses.
Woohoo!
Period. We'll let you figure that out.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Any haunted house in not reality, but in fiction.
Yeah.
Books or movies, basically. So, like, we couldn't do the Whaley house. That's not an option. So
I don't even know what that is, but
it's like one of the most haunted houses in America, or like the Winchester house or something.
Oh, okay.
Can't do something that's like allegedly supposed to actually be haunted. You can do something in fiction.
Yeah, I think I have an idea.
We might do real haunted houses.
Oh my God!
Some future episode. You know, it's funny.
I'm gonna
like,
cry.
You guys are more about like the movie stuff, and I'm more about like the history stuff and like the actual factual stuff. So, or allegedly factual stuff. So it's really interesting.
Yeah,
to put it together.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing next week. Don't forget to submit your movie monsters for a chance to win a t-shirt. And we will... Is there anything else that we need to talk about?
I guess don't forget that we are on Stitcher. Rate, review, subscribe on iTunes. We've been getting a few of those. We really appreciate them. They're very helpful. We've got some stuff coming up after the giveaway.
We are going to be starting a Patreon and also a merch corner so that people can buy our t-shirts. After we give one away, we will probably set up a little venue for people to purchase t-shirts. Do you think you'll be doing tank tops or something, too?
I mean, it's entirely possible if I can find somewhere to get the stuff. I just have to figure all of that out. But, I mean, for right now, we'll just do t-shirts.
Okay, yeah,
but I'm sure
with t-shirts.
Yeah, I'm sure soon we can start doing more stuff. Like, there's a good chance we can do stuff like even water bottles or car decals. I mean...
Flasks.
Oh, my God.
I don't have a flask. I always wanted to own one.
I have one that I got from a friend of mine. Oh, my gosh. It says something about booze on it, but it's boo... Like a goat.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
It's awesome. It's so cute. I need to send you a picture. It's great. But yeah, so we'll have some cool stuff coming for right now. There's been a few people who've contacted me about t-shirts too. And I've been like, we're not there yet. Just wait.
Yeah, a few people really want our t-shirts.
Yeah.
So.
And if you do order, just a heads up, they are going to be made to order because I'm hand making them on my own. So they may take a little bit of time, but I'm gonna try to get them out fast.
Yeah, they're still really good quality, but like we don't have a mass production way of doing it yet. So no, it'll be fine. Like you won't get them any later than a normal t-shirt order probably.
Yeah. We will be starting a Patreon soon as well, and we will post more information about that as well.
Yeah. And we've decided to set that up because podcasting actually isn't free. We thought it kind of was, but once we started, we sort of fell down the rabbit hole. And we have like a host subscription to pay for yearly, which is a little over $100. Between three of us, that isn't too bad. But then we have our new mics, and we'll probably be getting headphones and a pop filter and arm stands and all that good stuff. So
many things.
As poor college students, we would really just like to not have to put the money into it because we don't have the option of doing that. So if you could donate like $1 a month to us, that's $12 we didn't have before. So that'd be awesome. We're not making any profit off of it. We're just going to be putting into the show what you put into the show.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing some bonus content as well on there, maybe some videos, stuff like that. Maybe we can do an early release of episodes on Patreon as well. So we release them like on Friday or something instead of the upcoming Monday. So, you'll get stuff out of it. It's not like, you'll just give us money. We'll give you something in return.
We'll give you something. So we can do an early release of episodes or during the fall around here, this place lights up. Like, I live with people and am surrounded by people who love to do ghost hunts and check out local paranormal stuff and, decorate like shit for our Halloween. Like my roommate has a sunroom that is used for Halloween decorations.
That's amazing.
That's all that's in there. Is all his Halloween decorations, and the whole house is lit up. He has projections and decorations and like things that move and shit. So this whole place will be lit up. So we're gonna have a lot of material probably to be giving you as far as our like paranormal adventures are. And I didn't tell you this, Miranda, but in September I'll be going to Galena, which is a town in Illinois, kind of historical town, with my parents and my boyfriend, and we're going to be doing their local
ghost tour.
It's like a bar crawl and a ghost tour. Yeah. And then there's a seance. So hopefully I'll be able to get some material from that.
Oh, you're going to come back so haunted.
I don't know. I doubt it. I mean, it's Galena. We've been there. Like, my friend and I used to go every year for my parents' anniversary with them, and we would, like, get our own room. And we had this one room where, like, President Grant was just staring at us from the wall the whole time.
Like a picture? That's so creepy.
Yeah.
What the heck?
It's like those, like, lame Illinois ghosts,
Yeah.
But we'll have fun with it. So we'll have a lot of stuff probably to let you guys see, and
maybe some haunted house walkthroughs, which will be oh my god, so embarrassing for me, but it'll be fun content to watch.
It'll be so fun. So that's what we have for you guys tonight. Next week, tune in for our haunted house episode. I believe all of us will be here next week, so it will be super fun. And get your monster submissions into us, and don't skimp on the explanations.
Yeah, no kidding.
Alrighty. Good night, everyone.
Adios.